How the car changed the world, Henry. Ford was a successful businessman who had built his empire of factories by age 39. But he was unsatisfied with just building things. He wanted to invent something that would change the world. The first thing he tried was an electric car, but there were problems with the batteries. They were heavy, bulky, expensive, and dangerous. And so the quest for a new invention began. The problem with the electric car is the battery. You see, back then batteries were the size of a small dog. And when they died, drivers had to get out and push start the car. That's how it goes. This guy spent years developing a new engine that would allow the car to travel further than it ever could before. In fact, he was trying to build the first car that would travel from New York to Paris without stopping once. He made countless trips around the countryside to test his vehicle. At first, people thought the idea of an automobile was ridiculous. After all, what would you use it for? There weren't any roads or traffic lights. The only cars on the road were horse-drawn carriages. But the more he traveled, the more people he met who loved the idea of a horseless carriage. Soon enough, Ford was getting orders for his quadricycle from all over Europe and America. In 1896, the first quadricycle was sold in England. It cost £250, which was quite a bit of money at the time. But the buyer didn't mind because this was one heck of a machine. It had 3 speeds: fast, faster, and fastest. And it could go up hills like no horse ever could. Within 5 years, Ford had sold hundreds of these machines and had become a millionaire. But then something strange happened. People stopped buying his quadricycles. For some reason, everyone seemed to be building their own cars now. So Ford decided to do something crazy, bought every patent he could find for any type of internal combustion engine, and set about inventing his own vehicle. After 4 years of work, he finally finished his masterpiece, the quadricycle. It looked like a baby carriage with wheels attached to it. But under the hood, it was pure genius. The engine was small and light, so the car could go places no other vehicle could. Plus, it ran on gasoline instead of electricity, meaning it never needed to be recharged. Ford Motor Company was born, and the first quadricycles rolled off the assembly line in 1903. This was the beginning of the end for horse-drawn carriages. By 1910, there were over 2 million cars on the road. The Model T was the first affordable car for the masses. It cost $550, which was still quite a lot of money. But compared to the custom-made cars costing thousands of dollars, it was a bargain. In fact, it was so cheap to make that Ford could sell them for less than the price of a horse. And there were other advantages to owning a motor car. They were faster and more reliable than horses. They didn't need to eat or drink. They didn't leave messes behind, and they never went on strike. Before long, everyone who was anyone had traded in their horse for a shiny new Ford. Farmers could now drive their produce to market instead of waiting for trains or hiring someone else to do it for them. Shopkeepers could restock their shelves without having to rely on delivery carts. And factory workers could commute from the suburbs into the city center. All this meant that cities had to be redesigned. Streets were widened to accommodate more traffic, and traffic lights were invented. Road signs, speed limits, car insurance, and parking meters followed suit. But with all these changes came a downside. People living near busy roads complained about the noise and pollution. Some cities even tried banning cars altogether, but those bans didn't last long. By 1930, there were over 10 million cars in the USA alone. And by 1940, it was obvious that there was no turning back. The car had changed the world forever. Cars had caused major shifts in society, economy, and environment. The way we lived, worked, and played had been transformed by the automobile. Here are 7 ways the car changed the world. No. 1. The car gave rise to suburbs. People could now commute to work from far away. Cities were quickly engulfed by suburbs. These were residential areas filled with detached houses and manicured gardens. In fact, it was easier to buy a house in the suburbs than rent a flat in the city. Families flocked to live in the suburbs where they could enjoy more space for their money. Suburbs soon became symbols of middle-class America, a place where everyone knew your name. But this also led to social issues such as teenage pregnancy and drug abuse. Teenagers in the suburbs had too much free time on their hands, so they started experimenting. With alcohol, drugs, and sex, they developed their own culture, music, clothes, and hairstyles. Number 2, the car allowed for the growth of road trip culture. When the Model T first hit the roads, most journeys were short. People only drove from their home to their workplace, or maybe to the local supermarket. But as the car got better and roads improved, people started taking longer trips. The open road beckoned and adventurers answered its call. Soon, families were taking vacations in their cars, driving hundreds of miles to see relatives they hadn't seen in years. Motels, roadside diners, and gas stations sprang up across the country to cater for these travelers. Some of them became iconic landmarks in themselves. And with the advent of rock and roll music, road tripping took on a whole new meaning. Teenagers would hop in their hot rods and cruise around town looking for excitement. The car had become a symbol of freedom and adventure. Number 3, the car enabled tourism to flourish. People could now visit places far away without having to pay for expensive train tickets or airplane fares. They could explore their own country at their own pace, stopping at every roadside attraction and taking in the local culture. This led to a boom in the tourism industry. Hotels, restaurants, and shops all benefited from people traveling around the country. The car had become a tool for discovery and exploration. No longer did people have to stay close to home. They could see the world for themselves. No. 4. The car facilitated the growth of chain restaurants and fast food. With more and more people on the move, there was a growing demand for quick and easy meals. Fast food chains like McDonald's and KFC were quick to capitalize on this trend. They offered cheap, cheerful food that could be eaten on the go. Soon, they were everywhere, popping up in every town and city across the country. But this led to a decline in traditional dining. People became accustomed to eating fast food, and there was less demand for sit-down restaurants. Local mom-and-pop restaurants struggled to compete with the big chains, and many went out of business. Number 5. The car influenced the development of the oil industry. As more and more people bought cars, the demand for gasoline grew exponentially. Oil companies rushed to drill for oil in order to keep up with the growing demand. This led to a boom in the oil industry and made some very rich people. But it also had negative consequences. Oil spills, pollution, and climate change are just some of the problems associated with the growth of the oil industry. No. 6. The car spurred innovation in manufacturing processes. As the car became more popular, manufacturers had to find ways to make them cheaper and more efficient. This led to innovations in manufacturing processes. For example, the assembly line was developed to help mass-produce cars quickly and cheaply. This led to other innovations in manufacturing. Factories became larger and more automated. Products could be mass-produced quickly and cheaply. This led to lower prices and greater availability of manufactured goods. And number 7, the car impacted women's roles in society. Before the advent of the car, women were largely confined to the home. They were expected to take care of the children and do the housework while men went out to work. But the car changed all that. Women could now drive to the shops or pick up their children from school without having to rely on public transportation. This gave them more freedom and mobility. They were no longer dependent on men for rides. They could go places on their own. This led to changes in women's roles in society. More women entered the workforce and began earning their own money. They became less dependent on men and more independent. So those are 7 ways the car changed the world. What do you think? Did the car have a positive or negative impact on society? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my other content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.